we've got Tobago here, so we gets she gets to go first. Eric isn't here yet.
I know, Henry, I had somebody ask me today, "It would be okay if I show up at 6:30?" I said,
No.
Like, yeah, you should be okay tonight.
Oh, yeah, tonight, maybe. I did actually look it up, I believe it's 5 minutes ago, let's see if
We talked about that.
I need to sound.
This is an on-air mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Some of that, another public hearing recently, but
All right, we're on the air.
Okay, welcome to the Planning Board, Town of Kennebunkport Planning Board, August 3rd meeting. We're hybrid meeting with Zoom and in person. Actually, the first item on our agenda is a public hearing, so it'll be interesting to see if we get public calling in too. Anyway, first step is to take attendance, and at the moment, we are short George and Scott. Scott said he was in Boston this afternoon around 5 o'clock and was going to see if he makes it, but I wouldn't hold our breath. I don't know where George is. Anyway, we have a quorum. We need 3. We have 4. So we have first off the approval of the minutes of 7/20/22. So, who was Bruce Rawlings on that? Was with the minutes? Did you have issues with? No. Okay.
I would move to accept the minutes.
second.
Okay, so let me just go through the board. So Ed, you're in favor?
Yes.
I'm in favor.
In favor.
Larry's in favor. So we're all set for that, which brings us to the agenda. And item 1 is on hold at the moment. Item 2, number 220601, 1086 Kings Highway Peterson Design Group. So Eric Peterson is going to present updates, and then after we review those, we will open the public hearing.
I sent this to April just today, but this is some additional information on this
Okay, yeah.
application. The first sheet is.
I don't think anyone can hear him.
Well,
The first sheet is in response to.
you want to grab the microphone, Eric, the podium mic, and just for the benefit of the folks at home, you can pull. You can. Pull
I know,
it
I feel
out
like a game show host walking around with a microphone in my hand.
Right.
Come on down.
So the first sheet in the application, or the packet that I just gave you is something that was provided to me through April, some questions from the board. And so I've tried to respond to all of those questions by filling in the matrix and then answering the additional questions and giving some additional information on the bottom. So I guess what I'll do is start from the beginning. And April, is it easier if I use my
Whatever's easier for you.
folder for the board, or is it easier for the, put it on the screen?
Probably could do both.
Yep.
Okay, so on the site plan, what I've done is shaded in the area of the existing house. I can't remember who asked me for that.
Ed,
Or Larry, yeah.
Someone said
Larry,
they
yeah.
would prefer to see the existing house shaded. So this shows that the existing house has a larger footprint than the proposed house. And that's backed up in my information, that I gave you as supplemental information. So the proposed footprint of the house is smaller than the proposed footprint of the existing house. And the proposed footprint of the cottage is exactly the same as it was. So if we go through the matrix, that was a helpful way to do it. The main residence has an existing square footage of 2492.36, of which 55 square feet was an expansion that had already been taken. So the original basis, deducting that 55 square feet, brings us to 2437.36. And we're proposing 3214.5 because we've aggregated the two buildings as square footage and volume, and we are not taking any expansion on the footprint of the cottage. So we're actually coming up short on our, if you jump down to total area, 3,071.82 was the aggregated square footage of the two buildings.
Yep.
And if we subtract 55 square feet for the previous expansion, it leaves us with an original basis of 3,116.82. We're proposing a 25.8% overall area expansion. That gives us a total expansion area of 3793.96. And if we look at the bottom line of that table, the existing volume of both buildings was 28,403.94. The previous increase for the expansion that had been taken was 465 square feet. So the original basis then was 27,938.94 square feet. And we're proposing 36,305.11, which is a 29.9% expansion overall. So no expansion had been taken on the cottage previously. That was a question.
Right.
So that building was just a virgin situation there. Let's see. First question was, note that the proposed area expansion of the main residence seems to exceed the 30% maximum. Is this offset by the reduction in the cottage? Well, it's offset by the fact that we're taking no expansion of area in the cottage, yes.
Yep.
So the second one, I made a 50 square foot error on the calculation when I added up my numbers, so I've taken that 50 or 60 square feet out of the roof areas of the building, so the numbers that I gave you are accurate. The numbers that I gave you for volume are correct.
The total numbers have been consistent and correct all along.
It's where they come from.
But still, one further change you would want to make to this matrix is that the proposed volume for the main residence, you need to update that to be the corrected figure, the 60 cubic foot reduced volume. That number should be 28537.1, I believe, in order to get to 31.9% on the main residence volume.
You're right. You are correct.
You gave me all the information I needed was there. I appreciate that. Thank you. But that little
You're-
bookkeeping error didn't get fixed.
You're correct. I have to say, there's the amount of calculations on this thing, on this particular
Well, yes, yeah.
application were crazy.
And then if you go to the site plan, right, that number, each of these volumes is backed up by 10 or more numbers
Exactly.
to some, and
Yeah, it's
So-
a tremendous amount of calculation.
I understand it's not a typical do-it-yourself application.
It's just complicated by the fact that there was that initial small expansion that was taken.
Sure.
Once you get your head around that, I think. You are correct that we're taking a 25.8% expansion, not a 27.7% expansion. That was a typographical error.
Right?
You're correct that the previous expansion was only in the main residence. So let's see. The existing house, I think, Nina, you asked last week how high the existing house was and how high the proposed house is. The existing house was 19 foot, 9 inches high. The proposed house is 27 foot, 9 inches high.
Does that include the height of the chimney?
No.
It doesn't, because
Chimney's not included.
chimneys are not included in
That's
height.
correct. Chimneys are exempt from the height
And
cap.
other appurtenances,
You said it's going up to 29.9, right?
27 foot 9.
I
It's-
think on the
it's-
sheet you gave me, it said
It's
19.9.
29 foot, yeah, so.
proposed 29.9.
29 foot 9 is on the back side of the house, the very highest height of the whole building, but it's 27 foot 9 from the average original grade. So it's less than 27 foot 9 even on the front, because there's a little bit of a grade difference between the front and the back of the house.
Eric, too much information for me.
Okay, all right.
All, I'm like way lower than this.
If you want it from
You
average
answered my
original-
question, and it says, I'll read it to you, existing house height 19-9, proposed 29-9.
Right, and I
you
modified
just-
that today even, just to make it clear that it was from average original grade.
You're saying there's another version of this?
The one I just handed you,
27.
Okay, thank you.
because the way Werner calculates it, it's from average original grade.
Yeah.
So that's how I gave it to you, rather than the maximum height.
So you also, I just got in my email, as I was about to come here, an updated site plan, couple of sheets. And
What
you,
I sent April, that's what I just handed you now, was what she emailed to you, I'm
Okay.
assuming.
if I look at that, it's gonna say 27.9?
That's gonna say, good question.
It says,
That's not on the site plan
it says 27.9.
You just,
He corrected it over
The
there.
height of the building's not on the site plan,
I thought you, hold on, just bear with.
okay? Unless I missed something.
You just gave me this updated sheet. I got it from April.
That should say 27 foot 9.
It does.
Yes,
Okay, I hadn't seen that before.
gotcha.
That's a new sheet, right?
I added that information to it.
It's an
Yeah,
update.
you've seen the sheet, but I added the
Yeah.
height to it.
Okay.
So you could compare and contrast against the existing. There's another new sheet that shows a front view of the existing house with a height on that one too, which is 19 foot 9. And I think on your last, before the definition of building footprint, I think maybe where some confusion came in was where I listed decks and porches and steps included a second-story deck. So that number wasn't all at grade level. If you took that number strictly as a number and applied it to the square footage number of the first floor, it would come out with a number that's larger than the footprint of the existing house. But part of that deck is on the second floor.
Again, you're giving me too much credit. I looked, it's, you know, just because we're gonna keep doing this, you could read us a little better. I looked at the application and it said two numbers. It said, X by Y is the original footprint.
Right.
You know, Z by Z prime is that, and the new one was bigger. I thought, this is crazy.
Because they're not boxes. Yeah.
But the footprint is defined as a square, as an area.
Correct.
It's not defined as by those two numbers. And I wanted you to just write on that application. And you know, and if you'd written it, I probably would have looked for backup that said why it was the area that you chose. But your drawing gave you that sense that the new one was a smaller, albeit slightly smaller
It is
footprint.
slightly smaller, yes.
The application said to me otherwise. I just wanted that, and I was trying to coach you to say, oh yeah, the
I need
square
all the
foot.
coaching I can get, so thank you for that.
You know, you
Yeah.
gave me the square footage here, and that looks perfect, and it aligns with my intuition when I look at that sketch.
Okay, so we're covered.
Can I make one more? One question that I wrote that I think I've missed was, in the application, you say, oh, and we're adjusting so the height of the first floor is at the FEMA level or better. And
Correct.
I was looking for those numbers
Oh.
and something that I could look at on the drawing on those.
It
Can
would-
you
usually
please
that would be on
provide
a-
existing and proposed first floor elevations? So
Let me see if I have the existing first floor elevation from the old survey. I don't know if I have a threshold elevation on that survey. Let me take a look.
And it came out of me trying to, I think you'd spoken about it in terms of the main house, but then I got a little confused as to whether we were changing the cottage first floor elevation or not. I just thought, can you just talk to that?
So the proposed flood elevation for that area is elevation 13.
Can you
So-
say that in the application?
Yep.
Yep.
So there are two ways to do this. The town of Kennebunkport requires you to be 2 feet above the flood elevation, then adjusted for the new NGVD, which would be 15.75.
Okay.
FEMA only requires you to be at 14.75. So
Okay.
is that why, Warner, why does the town, it's just, like Wells is only 1 foot of freeboard. Kennebunkport asks for 2.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a local choice. You know, municipalities can set whatever they want in terms of a freeboard requirement. You know, whether it's so state of Maine requires a minimum of that 1 foot above. You know, town has had that in its ordinance since it was initially adopted. So it's at a 2 foot freeboard requirement for residential.
So we're proposing that both the finished floor of the elevation for the house and the cottage are 15.75.
15.75, both identical.
Correct.
The cottage is already there. Did I understand that the last meeting?
The cottage, well, I said that the cottage had been raised.
Yeah.
It has been raised. I look at my survey and I don't have a threshold elevation for those, for either one of those. The surveyor didn't put a threshold elevation on the survey, so I can't tell you exactly what it is now for either building. I assume the house is lower than that by a long shot.
So you may be raising the cottage a bit as well.
Marginally, yeah, it won't be much, because that cottage already sits pretty high.
And will they both have, what are they called, flood vents in the,
Flood vents in the foundation, that's right.
both structures?
Actually, the cottage is on
Cottage is
a
on
a flow-through foundation now.
So it will not have,
It's
a
much
change.
more than just flood vents.
All right.
Yeah, the
It's-
house will have flood vents.
okay.
Where those doors were, that's where it goes through.
Well, no, that's for access to the underside of the house, under the crawl space, but we need 1 flood vent for every 200 square feet of foundation. So, if you have 1,000 square feet of foundation, we need 5 flood vents. We usually round up to an even number, so you have the same number on the front as you do on the back, so that there's, even flow of water. If that makes sense, usually just round up to an even number. Did I answer all your questions?
You answered all the questions I put to you. I do have one more remark, and that is I got a chance to walk by the house this morning,
Yeah.
and it is a beautiful home right now. It has a really nice perennial garden.
Yeah.
Just, are you going to try to preserve any of that, or?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think they intend to take all that landscaping out and put it in a loam pile and then put it back. Their landscaping is beautiful. Yeah, I know. Well, I
Really?
didn't ask them to replace their house. They asked me to replace
No,
their house.
I
so-
understand. I
Yeah.
was envious a little bit.
Isn't it true? Well, that's
yeah.
one of the reasons that they didn't want to disturb that driveway.
Oh, yes.
They didn't want to rip that up because it was relatively new and it was expensive.
Okay.
I hope you do that in the fall after it rains.
Yeah, exactly.
You won't have much left.
Yeah,
Well,
that'll be
it's been watering
the
it.
transfer of all those plants will be a fall project for sure. Yes.
Thank you.
George, welcome. We have everybody here except Pat. Any other questions from the board? Okay, well, then I'm going to try opening up the public forum. Either of you want to speak to this? No? Anybody out there who wants to speak?
Nope,
Anybody out there?
there was, but they're gone.
Arg.
We
All
bored-
right,
we
well,
bored
in
bored
that
them to
case,
death.
I'm going to close the public hearing. So, Ed, do you want to deem it complete?
It is complete.
It is complete,
It is
yes, you want to approve.
Oh, I would move to approve this application.
I'll second that.
Okay, so, I'm just going to go down to George.
Approve.
Tom approves. Nina
There it is.
Yes.
and Ed, so it's unanimous. And
Thank you.
Thank you, and
Appreciate it.
we'll see you.
And I'll have findings the next meeting.
Fantastic. I'll be here. Okay, so switch gears.
No, we're going to do, we're going to do the Seashore Trolley Museum first.
Okay.
So. we get, So this is item 220603, Seashore Trolley Museum Card Barn, Sebago Techniques, Henry Haas. This is the initial review.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Nice to see you all this evening. As Tom mentioned, my name's Henry Hess, landscape architect with Sebago Technics. Here tonight to discuss the Seashore Trolley Museum application. Give you a brief overview of the project, and then I'll look to you guys to, I guess, for any sort of application completeness.
Okay.
Seashore Trolley Museum, I know recently they had the Model Rail Museum building application approved at the planning board level. This application is for the demolition of a 3,500 square foot existing trolley building, trolley storage building on site. Currently, the existing building's in some, it's in a bad condition and certainly does pose a potential safety hazard for the site. And the goal in removing it is to make space for a new 7,200 square foot trolley storage barn as well. So demoing an old and putting forth a new building. It'll have very similar orientation as today's building. It's going to be set a little bit further back than today's building. Still will have 3 rail lines going into it, entering into garage doors. The site improvements will include the building, pedestrian walkways, improvements to the access road there, as well as some much needed stormwater drainage and treatment for the site there. So there shall be treatment for new impervious surfaces, such as some of the walkways they're going to be used to access the building, as well as treatment for the roof of the new building. Power itself will be pulled from the existing overhead poles. But I guess that's kind of the gist of the project there. I know we have some visuals that April has as well. If we could pull those up, that'd be great.
Excuse me, I may be alone in this, but I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh, you are.
Your microphone is not
Not working?
broadcasting in this room. We're only hearing your voice, and you're talking to the microphone.
A little quietly?
Yeah.
Okay.
well,
I'll work to speak up.
Because the technology isn't working.
Certainly. I'll work to speak up.
Thanks.
It's a tough act to follow. He's projects his voice very well. Where would you like me to start off from? We can start, I guess, I'll give you the brief overview. So they're looking to demo a 3,500 square foot existing trolley building. The building itself is it's in an unsafe condition or is starting to fail. So the trolleys themselves that are in there, the barn could collapse on them, as well as any volunteers that are working there. It's certainly not quite at that point, but it's moving towards that level. They're looking to replace it with a 7,200 square foot storage barn, 4 trolleys on campus. So the removal of one, replacement of a new, the building will be set back a little bit further than the existing trolley barn location. Let's see. Site improvements for the new car barn will include, of course, the car barn itself, sidewalks and walkways, or not sidewalks, but walkways along the existing access drive, improvements to the access drive, as well as some much-needed stormwater drainage for the site. Stormwater itself will be treated through a series to the main DEP Chapter 500 standards, through a series of bioretention, as well as roof runoff and dispersal over gravel to cool the roof runoff itself from the metal buildings. Power for the site is proposed to come from an existing location, from the old building and extended to the new building via existing power poles on the site. There's no septic or water improvements for the site, or at least this particular portion of the site, as there will be no bathrooms or water run to the new storage barn. So that kind of is the overview of the project. The project did file for an exemption under DEP for their site location permit, as they have not hit a threshold for impervious surfaces, but they're still treating all the stormwater on site via the Chapter 500 standards of DEP.
And you're here at the planning board because a museum is a conditional use in the zone. Is that, there's no other reason that I'm aware of?
Werner
That's correct, yes.
Correct.
Werner
Yep,
said
so-
something about 1,000 square, the size of the building also.
Yeah, that's correct. So this is a conditional use in the farm and forest zone. And as such, the code office can, we can review and approve essentially renovations, improvements, within those structures, but, modest in nature in terms of expansion size. Where this is a complete replacement, of this, conditional use structure. Well, not only a replacement, but a doubling in its size. It comes before the planning board under site plan review.
Thank you.
Do you have a sketch in here? I had trouble finding where it shows the existing building and the expansion, because you are doubling it in size.
Yeah, I don't believe I have a sketch of the existing. There should be a sketch of the proposed building that was included in the packet.
You have the proposed building in several places in the packet, but nothing that shows the existing building where it is and the proposed building on top of that.
I believe the visuals or the presentation forwarded to April and Warner previously should actually, if we could bring that up.
It should be on the front page, right there on the
Right.
plan. Yeah, so.
Sure, the
you
aerial
see
will show that on the
drawn
cover.
in there, so
Is this the existing?
that's the existing building there.
All right, I wasn't sure.
You
whether
see the
one
white,
was over
you
that.
see the white roof, and then the footprint of the new building is directly adjacent to it.
Thank you, Warner.
And so you're moving trolley tracks, basically.
Correct.
But you're still maintaining 3. You said there are no bathrooms in there, but are you going to be doing any work like painting or varnishing or anything on the trolley cars themselves? Plans for more buildings?
You know, I'm sure at some point there will be another one.
The next one will probably be garage.
Okay.
Take the mic, please.
Oh, you want me?
Please.
Come on up, Katie.
Oh, boy. I can't.
Katie Orlando, Executive Director of the Seashore Trolley Museum. Yes, the next building will probably be a garage to store some of our work vehicles, and it will also be located in the town of Kennebunkport, if approved.
What, do you have a time frame for that?
It's just a matter of us identifying contractors at this point, so we don't have a time frame. Ideally, we had wanted to present it prior to this meeting, but we're just having a hard time, as I'm sure others are, just tracking down contractors to help us with the plan.
Okay.
Is this replacing an existing garage or
It would be brand new.
brand new?
Yeah,
And would
no,
that
not
require-
replacing anything.
Come back.
Helping get our
So
equipment
they'd have to
indoors.
come back a third time
Back.
Yep.
as well.
Yeah, we're fine with that, if you're fine
Okay.
with it.
Okay. So, and the stormwater runoff and everything that you, it seems to be basically the same as you did with the earlier building. Treating the stormwater.
Yep, stormwater will be treated from any additional impervious surfaces such as the walkway as well as the roof itself of the building. And we're even capturing a little bit more. We're capturing some of the runoff coming from the existing street as well. So areas that previously were not treated are being treated.
Okay. And you're not adding, other than the building, you're not adding any more impervious surfaces like walkways and things like that?
There is just one walkway coming from the access road to lead you to the building.
Is that new?
Yes, that will be new.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. George, Larry?
Well, so thank you for presenting this. I just had a couple of details. So you're going to use this new building to store trolleys, right? And you may do some work in there on the trolleys. So are you going to have any hazardous materials in there? Any drums of oil, anything that you might need some special containment for? I mean, I don't know.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, and then, so if you're doing work in there, are you going to do any, like cutting, welding, that kind of stuff that you might need a fire suppression system?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so, and then if you are doing work in there, you're going to need an eye wash station, something like that, because there's always the potential for some sort of unexpected accident, and immediate treatment is preferable to trying to run somewhere else. So, maybe, so I guess what I'm getting at, maybe you want to definitely define the limits on what you're going to do in there, and then decide if you need some safety or environmental mechanism inside the building. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, yeah, I know Katie can answer that a little bit. I know the barn itself is intended mostly for storage, so.
Yeah, in this day and age, we are wanting to prioritize the inspections of our trolleys. Right now, we can do quite a bit, but we only have one, what we call a pit on campus to do that work. So every day we inspect the trolleys, but it would be ideal to be able to look underneath them also daily, and we just don't have that resource. So that's ultimately what this storage barn would help us with. We'd be able to do daily inspections. If there's something wrong with the trolley, we would bring it into our restoration shop and work on it there. So we're not anticipating any physical work aside from really minor adjustments, or, the trolleys are electric, so they don't have that many chemicals in use like other rail equipment would.
So you're going to be able to, are the tracks going to go over an inspection pit?
Yes.
So you're going to have an inspection pit, okay?
Yes.
So is that going to be a confined space? Confined spaces get pretty tricky pretty quickly. You may want to check into that, because ventilation of confined spaces is very important.
So it will be open air, 50 feet long, and two entry access points. The trolleys are a lot shorter than 50 feet, so it won't be a completely enclosed space. The average size of our collection that will most likely be in there is between 40 and 42 feet, but a lot of the items are also a lot shorter than that. So.
Okay, all right, so well, you may want to think about that as well. Especially if you have any propane or anything like that, because propane is heavier than air, it will sink to the bottom.
Yeah,
So if
we
you
don't
have,
use propane on our equipment.
okay, all right, well, as long as you've looked at it,
Yeah,
sounds great.
We have, yeah. Yeah, our trolleys are mostly electric operating, so it makes it a little bit cleaner to
Okay.
handle.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Katie, do you want to talk just a little bit about the work that does happen at the restoration barn? Just so
Sure.
folks kind of understand a little bit about, where kind of the actual shop work occurs?
Sure. So I think most of you have been to Seashore Trolley Museum, but for those who haven't been in a while, our restoration shop's located at the back of our campus, away from our guest accessible area, although we have built a walkway so that guests can walk up to the second floor viewing gallery. But our staff and volunteers work in the restoration shop year-round. They do everything that's required to fully restore trolleys and keep them maintained. So there is some welding that happens outdoors, some painting in a protected room, fabricating metal, lots of painting, woodwork, carpentry. If you haven't been to the shop, we welcome you to visit, but that's where the magic happens. This will just be a storage barn that'll make it easier for us to keep our trolleys inspected and well cared for, so.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Do you need an inspection or an approval from the fire marshal for this one?
Well, I mean, this building just, due to its size and its use, we'll need to go through, that type of review. And like any of the commercial buildings that we have in town, they go through a design process through a licensed architect and engineer as well.
Okay, good.
Good. George, you been here? Okay. So, see, I don't have anything additional because, so I guess I'll accept a motion here.
I'll make a motion to deem the application complete.
I'll second that.
Okay, and I'll just put on the roll here,
Approve.
George.
Approve.
Approved.
Yes.
Okay, so that it's complete. We will have a public hearing on this 2 weeks from today. This is on the 17th.
Should we prepare for an in-person caseworker visit? The words that you used last time when Nina came out and toured our property?
I had just not been out there like the others, so I needed to just see what the site was like.
Okay. So no. Okay.
No,
I'll just get lost if I go into that.
it's a fun area. I might be up there.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay,
And I agreed to be case manager.
yes, oh, okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to, of all people, Eric Peterson. So this is item 220601, 11 Bellwood Avenue. It's initial site plan review. You're gonna tear down 3 buildings and build 1. I understand.
Thank you. Yes, so this is a property on the backside of Wildwood Avenue at Goose Rocks, on sort of a little peninsula that has lots of land for a change.
Yeah.
It's got lots of space. It's got an existing house and a garage and a shed that are all have been there for a while, although The garage, when we did some research with Warner, was determined that the garage was added in 1990. So that being after October of 1989 contributes toward almost all of the expansion potential that we would have had on that property. So this is very different than the one at 1086 Kings Highway. This one has almost all of its expansion potential has already been taken. We only have 43 square feet and 538 cubic feet left over to play with. So for the most part, we've taken the volume of the garage, the house, and the shed and amalgamated them into one single building that then has it's 2 stories, so it has a pretty substantial lot coverage reduction. And we are you know, taking a collection of buildings that sprawls right now and consolidating them into one much smaller footprint, which I took your advice and showed that on the site plan. I think the one I sent you has the shaded area that shows where the 3 buildings were. And then shows the footprint of the proposed house. So this again, not currently in the flood zone, but in the area that will be flood zone when the time comes. So very much like 1086 Kings Highway we're proposing, it's the same 13-foot FEMA elevation proposed for that area. So we're proposing the same 15.75 elevation, which, just for clarity, makes it look like a 2.5-story house, but that whole first floor, if you want to call it that, is not habitable space. It's just open space. It can't be used for anything except storage or a car. So it's not, that whole, what looks like a first floor is not living space, can never be living space. Doesn't count for or against us for volume or area. It has no volume or area. It's open on the bottom with slatting, and will be a flow through when the foundation is poured. So let's see. This house has 75-foot setback coming at it from 2 sides, so it's completely enveloped by 75-foot setbacks from the high water mark. So there's no sort of setback window to build. You know, there's no clear window to build a house in, so we've located it sort of centered in the space as far away from the water on both sides as we could see would be practicable. So the existing shed is over here, the existing garage is over here, the existing house sprawls quite a bit more than the proposed house. And we've literally centered the house in the distance between the 2 high water mark setbacks. And we feel as though that's the sanest place to put that house on that lot to respond to the town land use ordinance. Let's see. So like I said, the existing garage was an addition in 1990, so that did contribute toward the 30% expansion. It left us with 43.47 square feet and 538.46 cubic feet available, which we do propose to incorporate into the proposed house. The existing house and decks are 19.12.2 square feet, and then if you add 43.47 square feet, it gives us just a little bit more than we are proposing at 1955 square feet. The existing volume of the house, garage, and shed are 20,241. We're proposing 19,574. Overall lot coverage has been reduced from 9.37% to 7.15%. And the building itself, the building, proposed building footprint is substantially smaller than the footprint of the 3 buildings combined.
gonna ask my favorite questions. Do all the windows have screens?
They don't all have screens, but we obviously, in response to your wishes, we have tailored our design these days to have as few windows without screens as possible.
What about overhangs on the ones that don't have screens?
This house doesn't, if I'm being honest, this house does not have a whole lot of overhangs because overhangs count toward lot coverage and we don't have, I guess we have some lot coverage to spare. I mean, we did reduce our lot coverage, so.
Your windows,
Talk to me about that. What do you like to see?
you're basically in a marsh.
Yep,
You're gonna have a lot of birds.
I won't disagree with you there. You win on that one. Yep.
And because of that, you've got a lot of reflection,
Yeah,
because it's an open area around you,
yeah.
and birds fly into windows. You're gonna have a problem in spring and fall with migrating species if you don't have something that basically tells the birds not to fly into it.
How about things like pergolas and that cast shadows and like pergolas? If we did, a decorative pergola over a bank of windows.
That might work. It would help to cut the reflections.
That's something.
Anything that it's hard to know because there are different species and they react differently to things, reflections and seeing things. I mean, if you put a bird feeder where the window is that doesn't have a screen, you're gonna have birds crashing into it. There's no question about it. It depends on whether you're north, south, west, or east. There are systems.
Can you unpack that a little bit more about the north, south, east? What is there an elevation or a direction that is a migratory direction that catches more bird traffic? Is that what you're implying?
I'm sure there is. I'm not sure what it is for a marsh.
Would you hazard a guess as to what side you think would catch more bird traffic?
I would say east and west would
Okay.
be more likely. So if you've got windows facing east and west, you've got a lot of windows in that house.
Yeah, that's why people buy houses at Goose Rocks Beach because they want to see the
They want to have the
view.
views.
Yeah.
But the problem with the views is, going outside and seeing dead birds in front of you on your feet.
Well, nobody wants that.
No.
Nobody wants that.
They don't, but they don't know what to do about it. There are systems you can put in with metal wires that will alert birds. It's a small space, they can't fly through it, that sort of thing.
I'm intrigued by the overhang suggestion that you made.
Overhangs help cut reflections.
Yeah.
And so you don't in the spring get a male bird that said, "This is my territory, I don't like you," when he's looking at himself in the mirror and starts to tap on your window for an hour or so.
Like my dog barking at himself in his reflection in the back door. Yeah.
Exactly,
Uh-huh.
exactly.
He's
And
a
I've had him
genius.
go for hours.
Yeah.
On a cellar window, I've had him go for hours.
Okay.
So it's a matter, you have to look at, what you've got there, where you are.
So if we were to maybe not decrease our lot coverage so much and pump up the overhangs on this house a little bit, is that something the board would like to see?
I don't know, do you have to have permanent overhangs? What about impermanent, sort of reflective type overhangs? Is that counted in the surface area? Like if they had a metal overhang over the
Rather than having to do an entire roof overhang,
Yeah.
you could do an awning or window boards,
Yeah, an awning.
Yeah.
like an old Victorian house. you see
So
this window
awnings,
boards over it.
so for instance, retractable awnings, are spelled out in ordinance that they don't count towards,
right.
towards,
That's right.
a coverage calc or something of that nature.
They're also not used.
Yeah.
Or the idea of a pergola, would that be amenable to you? The idea of if we had a big, like for instance, this big, the two banks of windows here, right? If we did pergolas over those two banks of windows,
It would probably help a lot, yeah.
and those honestly, on this house, are the two banks of windows that I'm thinking you're gonna be most concerned about, because a lot of the other windows are smaller and some are set back, some have screens, some are under roof overhangs already.
Some of them look like double hungs, and I know you put screens in those,
Yeah.
but some of the others, like to the left on that drawing, I'm not sure about,
Our basements, yeah.
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 If they're casements, then there could be a problem. There is such a thing as bird-proof glass.
Yeah, we've looked into that.
It's
The-
hard to find, and
The
it's,
cost is astronomical.
yeah.
One house, not a house that we did, but a house that you suggested someone else, an application that wasn't one of ours, but I heard the details. They did price that house in bird glass, and the delta between normal windows and the windows with bird glass was $80,000.
The difference.
The delta between the two.
Wow.
So that was a no-go.
But they had a lot of windows.
That was the one on Ocean Avenue,
Yeah.
on that knoll, where that house is being built right now,
Go
Yeah.
to the woods.
by Lake of the Woods.
Yeah.
$80,000 was the difference.
Yeah, but that's $4 million house.
Well, this is not a $4 million house.
Right. But that was.
If this is a $4 million house, my client's gonna have a heart attack. So,
Yeah.
you know what? I have to tell you, windows these days are so hard to get as it is, so hard to get. We've got 2 houses under construction right now that are being framed. The windows come in November.
You don't have to tell me about it. I've ordered windows for a farmhouse that I have, and they're not gonna be in until spring.
Yeah.
So-
Windows are a crazy commodity right now. And that's, I mean, I just had a client in Wells go all casements because the casement lead times were 30 weeks instead of, 45 weeks.
Yeah.
They rejiggered their whole package so that they could get windows they could get just a little bit quicker.
And I have windows sitting in the house, and I haven't got the handyman to put them in.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, seriously, trying to find somebody to do the work.
Everything's backed up right now.
You're singing my song, I get it.
Don't
Yeah.
get me started.
I don't know all the answers to this. I'll do some more research.
Do you
on
see
it.
that I'm trying to work with you on this to get
I know you
it
are.
done?
And I'm just trying to avoid some tragedies here.
I got you.
Awnings might be one solution to help cut reflections.
Yeah, okay.
The pergola sounds like a good idea, especially if you grow something over it.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's a
And that would
win-win.
help, growing something over a pergola is like having trees, it cuts the heating and cooling costs of the house too.
It's nice to look at, so.
It's not wisteria.
It's what?
Not wisteria.
Not
Tear your house
wisteria,
down.
no, not
Lovely
things that
plant.
put.
You have to wait too long for that, too.
Yeah.
No, my wisteria is way down, away from my house.
They'll tear a house down.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. My other favorite thing is fertilizers and pesticides. You're really in a marsh, you shouldn't be using any.
Yeah. I have no control over that, honestly, but I know that we've talked in the past about the idea of educating people. And I think you've all met with the Conservation Commission, haven't you? Because
Yes.
they are on the same track as far as wanting to establish some guidelines or recommendations. So, listen, I think I told you how I stand on that. I'm a friend of Casco Bay.
Yeah.
And we have a sign on our front flower bed that says we don't use pesticides or fertilizers, mostly because of my pets too, so.
Yeah, well, I
But,
live on the Kennebunk River, and I'm a friend of that river, so
yeah,
I don't use pesticides either.
what I would suggest is that I think the best we can do within the parameters of the guidelines that we have to work with is to educate people and make recommendations backed up by literature or some sort of, material that helps them make educated choices.
Well, I'd like to make some recommendations in this application, that they don't use fertilizers and pesticides because of the close proximity of the marsh.
I can't agree to that without asking them. It's not my property, and I think that's an onerous request. So,
Can we just be clear here? I thought I heard Nina say that she would like to recommend.
Yes.
She
Oh,
didn't
okay.
say she
So
would
not a
like
mandate, a
to
recommendation.
put a condition on
We've
it.
been through this,
I just-
we made conditions, and I would like to make conditions,
Yeah,
because I think we could.
I don't think that's gone away, but
No, it
A
hasn't
recommendation.
gone away. But I think I'd like to make the recommendation of pesticides or fertilizers.
okay, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, I think that's,
We still have to work it out. I still think we have the authority to do it. So. But that's something, you have a roof deck up there.
We do.
Does that count as surface area?
Yep.
It counts as square footage.
Square
It
footage.
counts as square footage.
That's what I
Yep,
thought.
there's no volume, obviously, but
Right.
it counts as
Right.
square footage.
Yeah, just like a deck below or.
Yep.
Correct.
Tall wood.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I don't have other questions.
Okay. Anyone else?
No.
Could I ask for some help in understanding where the shoreland zone and resource protection zone boundaries are on this lot?
So the whole thing's in shoreline.
Where is the beginning of the shoreland zone?
Shoreline zone would start at elevation 7 and go.
I'm sorry, where am I seeing elevation 7? That's
The,
right.
the surveyor already adjusted this one for the new NGBD, so it's called 6.3.
6.3 is the new 7. That's catchy. I like that.
Werner and I are used to elevate, it's been elevation 7 forever, but the new surveys we're getting now are showing it at 6.3.
I just got trained on the last one that you brought
I
forward.
know. I asked the same question when I got the survey. Why are we showing 6.3? And he said that's because we're adjusting for the new NGBD. So this, see the dashed line?
Our ordinance specifically calls out 7.
I know, but it's not adjusted for the new NGBD.
Our ordinance is not adjusted for the new NGBD. I agree with you.
So elevate.
Where is 7 on this chart?
What's labeled 6.3 is 7.
Yeah.
Ah,
6.3 is, yeah.
Right.
The
it
new
is
7.
6.3 feet what?
I feel like I'm brainwashing you somehow.
So you're just hammering.
So
Remind me what 6.3 feet means.
That's an elevation above sea level.
Now, that didn't, above sea level. And sea level
Is 0.
has changed.
Wow.
Yeah, well,
That's what I'm hearing.
why?
Yeah, so, you
You're
know,
a Borner.
so the number, you know, I don't know that you could directly take that, you know, number and say, this is 7 feet above, you know, 7 feet above sea level, or, you know. What it is, it's a number that relates to these geodetic discs or datums, you know, that are located in fixed areas throughout town. So it's you know, these all relate back to, you know, these particular fixed points that have been, you know,
Established
put in
benchmarks.
place by the Geodetic Survey. You know, what it represents, you know, that elevation 7 is, you know, or in this case, 6.3. So keep in mind, it's, you know, what's the best way to explain this? It's like saying miles per hour versus kilometers per hour, okay? You're measuring the same speed. It's the same speed, it's just measured differently.
No, I got to stop you.
So-
I hear you saying that there's some fuzz on this. I got that. But this says 6.3 feet. Our ordinance says 7 feet.
Taken from a different date of the NGBD.
Yeah.
That's the
No,
difference.
no.
That's, well, that, no,
Our
that,
ordinance says what it says.
what it should say is elevation 7 asterisk 1929 NGBD.
Actually, it does.
Okay. So this
Seven.
is,
And this is, you know, this is NAVD 88.
that's right.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
what,
starting to hear something. I
yeah,
can-
so 6.3 is NAVD 88, you know, 7 is NGVD 29.
Okay.
So to answer your
so
question,
I'm-
that
okay.
is the same number.
Right.
And that, and it has a funny shape to it here. It goes around, I like that. It's like a contour line, right?
Yep, that's right.
And
That would throw a setback inward.
where is the water on this picture?
Well-
Remind me.
The water,
It
there's
goes to
just
the
a
marsh
creek.
and then outside of that is the water.
It's really, that's all marsh beyond there, and there's a creek in the marsh at some point, but it's all marshland. There's no, you know where this is, right? As you come over Dyke Road, if you can imagine coming over Dyke Road toward Goose Rocks,
Yeah?
right? As you cross the little bridge, if you can picture that, there's a
Yes.
little creek. If you look to the left, this house sits off to the left
Okay.
in a grove of trees.
I'll check it out.
It's white now, there's a
So,
white house there.
Drum roll here.
Hmm.
The resource protection zone the line between the resource protection zone and the shoreland zone is the line that's marked elevation 6.3 feet on this drawing. RP is toward the water. The shoreland zone begins at that line, and it goes toward the street.
That is
Yes.
correct, and both things have a different setback. There's a 75-foot setback for RP.
Well, there's 0 from the RP. You can't build in the RP.
Warner, can you do a better job?
Yeah, I mean, the RP is the RP is a zone that, we've had some discussions about, about
Yep.
this piece. So, the RP in this particular area is a zone that, taken in and of by itself, doesn't have a setback to it, but it is a
Correct.
zone. There's not a setback from a zone. Now, if you just take that and look at it in a vacuum, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you take the shoreland zone, there is a setback pulled
75.
off of 75 feet that is pulled off of your elevation 7.
Coming towards me as I'm looking at this piece of paper.
That's correct.
Yes, toward the street.
But you can't see that number because it crosses each other. There's
You
a s-
have, in this
there's-
particular
I'm sorry.
case, you have overlaps.
The 75-foot comes at you from this position and
Yes.
from that position.
Yeah, it essentially blankets,
It's the whole thing.
yeah.
Yep, that's right. So there's no
So the whole.
building envelope with
The whole
setbacks.
lot is either RP or shoreland
Both.
zone, and, no, not both. That line, RP is all outside of that, toward the water,
Well, there's also the 250-foot shoreland zone,
which begins at that
which again
6.3.
crosses each other as it comes at each other from both sides.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So what we're saying is the 75-foot covers the entire lot.
That's correct.
There's no building envelope.
That's correct.
And you're not gonna make that any worse by what you're doing.
That's correct.
Understood. And you're not gonna relocate the house any closer to the water,
That's correct.
to the
That's what-
RP zone.
That's why we put it right in the middle, because on the east side, it's very close to that RP line.
Yeah,
Yes,
So-
it is.
So we've centered it on the lot so that it's the furthest away from the water in every instance.
Right, and these dotted lines that show the existing garage and house all have some portion to the east of what you're proposing,
That's right.
which you would argue is closer to the water, or,
That's right. And the shed is further to the west.
you really, it's not any worse. It is not
That's
more
why we located to
non-conforming.
the best location practicable.
Right, and that's what we're charged to agree with, is to make sure we all feel that way, that,
That's my understanding.
you can't do any better here. I think that's fair. Nice job, thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, good.
No, thank you.
Where are they gonna park, on that circular drive?
No, they're going to park behind the house where it says grass, where there's a rectangle behind.
Okay.
Yeah, because that circle is grass. Grass with a apron of cobblestones around the edge of it.
So you're putting in a driveway.
We're taking out a larger driveway and putting in a new driveway. That's right.
Okay, so, I have a motion that this is complete.
I'll make a motion that the application is complete.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's down to George?
Approve.
Approved?
Yes.
Approved. Okay, so
Thank you.
it is complete. We'll have a public hearing on the 17th. And the only thing I have to do is to assign a spec key for this one.
I'd be more than happy.
Okay. So George is taking this as the leader, so, all right. That brings us to the last item, which is okay, we have item number 20701, BCD Woodland LLC, Woodland Drive, Duncan McDougal, sketch plan. I caution you, almost all of us walk on South Main all the time and know where the road is.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm, yeah, we know.
How you doing? I'm Duncan McDougal, representing the owners and the builder. I am the builder. This is my first one here, so I'm not sure how I start this, so.
Doing good.
Thanks.
The idea is to give a description of what it is you want to do, and any history would be helpful.
Okay.
And if there's something you want out of this, since it is a sketch plan, just best you can make that clear.
Sure.
I
Basic.
can also provide a little bit of history and, on, in regards to the property. This is it's a little bit of a unique one, in that regard, where you've got an older subdivision that, say some of the details were lacking of that, from back in the 80s, so, yeah.
Yeah, basically, my client bought the property hoping to, it's almost 10 acres, like 9.74 acres total. And he was hoping to be able to split it and build 2 houses on it. So we started the process a couple of months ago. I got a permit from the previous code officer to start upgrading the road, as you've probably all seen. Mm-hmm. And then we were given that permit. I can't remember what the title of that permit, land use permit. And we were allowed to cut some of the trees to build the road, upgrade the road, and then start clearing spot to build a house. So basically, starting with the sketch plan to try to go ahead and move forward and get approval to split that lot in 2, to be able to build the 2 houses eventually.
Okay.
So just in terms of, a historical context, what you have here is you have an old subdivision that was a, Kennebunkport Seashore Company subdivision, that was created in the 80s. And I believe what you had here was originally 1, 2, 3, had 4, very large lots that, because of the desire to divide, went through a planning board subdivision approval process. What wasn't included, and I don't believe what existed back then, was any type of design standards, road standard, or anything of that nature that went along, with that. From the research that I did and that and discussions that I had with Duncan, is that the best in terms of information that we had from that original subdivision approval was just some discussions over replacement of an old culvert that was on this existing woods road. So fast forward to a number of years ago, there was one of the parcels was purchased by an abutting property owner. This is the McCabe, who had a desire, prior to that, and I believe the board has received a copy of an older set of findings. I believe the property owner was Kate's, and who divided one of those lots in a very similar request to what Duncan is bringing to you. Wanted to divide one of those larger parcels and had received planning board approval to do so.
And then didn't
They didn't do anything with it,
And
though,
they
did
didn't, that's correct. So, nothing was built, as, you know,
Okay.
after that process. At a later date, when, and I don't believe it was McCabe, it was an owner prior to McCabe, made some lot line adjustments to accommodate, a guest house, you know, for the 260 Ocean Ave, I believe it's 260 Ocean Ave, home. Parcel lines were flipped around a bit to allow for that to be its own separate standalone residence, but that's accessed through 260. But again, no construction was undertaken based on the previous, you know, split for you know, what we have is identified as 8331 and 8331A. So,
I'm sorry, I didn't recognize those numbers.
that would be, that's
This
parcel.
is, yeah, B is
B.
the one that got sub.
Correct. These were subdivided.
But,
Right.
but bear with me, if they didn't act on that, is that lot subdivided now, or is it just they
It
made
is.
an application and
Nope.
didn't do it?
It was subdivided.
It was.
Yep, it was divided.
It just wasn't built upon.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so today, this kind of has it.
Right. And so, then, you know, again, with, you know, somewhat the lack of improvements, and what was applied for, and what was permitted, appropriately was, you know, essentially a private drive extension for lot 8329, which is parcel D, which is what's in front of you today,
Yep.
that Duncan is representing.
And
And so these are all lots of record, and so as a matter, you know, and they're available to, you know, to be built on. So one of the, you know, as part of the discussion that Duncan and I have had is, you know, absent a street design, you know, to what standard does future division of, you know, these properties, you know, what are they held to? So for, you know, because the road standard, you know, that was assigned was specific for 8331A and 31, which was never built on, you know, this was a question of what do we hold this particular, you know, particular request to? So, based on that and the fact that it's, you know, any type of re-subdividing is under the jurisdiction of the planning board, advised Duncan to come to the board with a sketch plan and say, well, all right, here's what we want to do, right? You know, here's the, you know, the thought was to take that larger 10-acre and split it into two. We have a previous approval that allowed for a 16-foot traveled width road, as was approved by the planning board. And so part of the purpose of this is just to have a discussion with the board in terms of, do we, the proposed division needs to come to the board as part of a re-subdividing, but to what standard
Right.
standard do we hold, this application in terms of, road construction and road width, traveled width in particular.
How does the reference in the deed flow with all of this?
Which reference?
I couldn't hear you, sorry.
Reference in the deed made to an agreement to remove restriction dated June 28, 1985, and recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds and so forth. I haven't looked that up.
I believe what that was is it was a private restriction that was in place regarding a re-subdividing. That
By
was
the owner of that lot?
correct.
So basically, the owner of that lot can take that off, can take that restriction.
That's right. Yep. Still has to go through a planning board.
Right.
Still has to go through a planning board process. Yeah.
Can we go
Would
back
this
to the road for a second?
Sure.
The road, as I understand it, and from the deed, the road isn't a part of those 10 acres,
Correct.
right? It's owned in common by all of the lots that abut it.
I believe you are
and-
correct.
And they have a shared maintenance agreement. I don't know that this is an active organization, all, but that's what the deed says.
Yep.
And if I understand what your land use permit is, you're undertaking to upgrade that road. But Werner, when you said they came and, you talked about them extending the driveways on their lots and all of that, that's all well and good, but this permit appears to be to take on the cost and the burden of upgrading the road. Like, only the first part of that road is paved, you're gonna pave the rest of it, and
Correct.
is that cost gonna be shared with the other people that own that road?
I have tried to reach numerous people, and I've talked to Mr. McCabe's attorney, told him
Yeah.
what we were looking to do, and basically said, do whatever you want at your own cost.
Yeah, I got you. Maybe that was
Unfortunate-
their strategy when they got approval to subdivide and
I've had numerous
wait you out.
conversations now with a younger realtor in the area who represents Mr. McCabe, and she even asked me today, are we bringing in the public water? Are we paving the road? So I've said, we'd love to get together, and if you'd like to split costs and help us bring in, public water was going to be over $500,000, so we kind of walked away from that, unless someone wants to help us split some of that cost.
More than that, you're gonna be stuck with all of the maintenance of it, even though you've got a deed arrangement that says otherwise.
Right.
Yeah, and that would be a private issue, regarding how the maintenance agreement is administered.
It would, but one of the things about bringing this type of business to the planning board with, besides the standards, is the fact that, not for the sketch plan, but thereafter, you're gonna get a public hearing out of this, and so I'd like to see those issues voiced, even though it's not our jurisdiction to resolve them.
Sure.
I think to put them out in front of the public is important.
Yep.
That's all.
I agree.
In terms of the length of the road, what would the fire marshal's interpretation to be?
The existing road, you mean?
Well, the existing road is more of an idea than an actual road. In terms of, I know for some subdivisions, there's a 1,000-foot rule where there has to be additional
Yeah, road
access
length
into it.
limitations.
Yeah.
And that would be the case when you're looking at a new subdivision, proposal. This is not a new subdivision proposal. You're looking at essentially a re-subdividing of a previously approved subdivision.
Okay.
Arguably, had there been a road design standard in the 80s, you would have had a road design that would have extended, the entire length of that right away.
So the road standards do not apply. I'm sorry. So road standards do not apply because it was subdivided then.
Well, road standards didn't exist at that
Right.
time. The planning board didn't have, the same type of subdivision regulations that you have today, that spell out the technical specifications.
Hypothetically, you could start saying this is approved, and the road standards are what they are. We could reverse engineer them. Is the change of subdividing Lot D influenced at all by the fact that it is a smaller road, a less robust road than you would have to have today? And
Shared
at first
driveway.
blush, sharing that between two driveways and one driveway, that doesn't seem to me to be a high-traffic situation that's being proposed, so I don't think it's gonna be an issue.
I was thinking of terms of total length until you get to the closest fire hydrant, which is out on the main road.
No, I think that's important, is that, for us to go forward with this, we would look to the fire chief to buy into whatever fire suppression approach was
Right.
taken here. Yeah.
Is there any history of a road design plan for this? Not
No.
at all.
No, none that I could find.
There's a mention in the finding of facts from 2000.
Yeah, from 2000 there was, but not from the original. Yeah, not from the very
This
original
was from the
design.
subdivision that Joanne Cates
Yep.
did.
And that
to
was,
he mentioned that one of the other lots was subdivided. and I asked-
Yeah.
And there's currently a fence, but the road does continue on down toward Walker's Point.
Well, that's actually a different
No,
road.
that's
as far-
Sandy
That's
Cove.
Sandy Cove Road, and we've tried to figure out who owns that gate and who owns that fence. And yeah,
Secret Service.
is that who it is? Yeah, I heard a rumor that's why the
Really?
gate was there instead of just a fence. Yep, that the Secret Service had a key to that. But
that's a much different conversation for a
Yes,
different
it is.
meeting. But, yeah.
so am I gonna get a visit?
No.
You already have, you just don't.
You're probably right.
We'll see
They're
who's
waiting
here
outside-
next time.
Yeah, right. They're-
Yeah.
Great.
No, but again, in terms of just process, the last, approval that I have for this is is a 16-foot wide road that was, that was approved by the board for the subdividing of one of the other lots. And so, we've had some discussions about what might be, what might be an appropriate, proposal, as part of the request to do this division here. And I don't think it's necessarily an unreasonable one to adopt the previously approved design that was done at the 16-foot traveled width for the singular division.
Well, we could adopt it, but I think it would have to be subject to fire marshal approval.
That's correct, yes. And we would do that, we would, in our typical process, the plan would go to the fire chief, and the fire chief could make his recommendations on that plan.
Can you have a homeowners association that's just property owners? For instance, there's other property along here, but there's no other home along there. So,
Yeah, you have essentially an landowners association.
okay.
It's
So-
called the Woodland Drive North Owners Association, but we can find zero information.
It's not an active organization.
No, there's not even anything recorded. It was just referenced somewhere, I believe in 1980, and nothing's been done with it since.
Yeah.
The only other thing I noticed in the 2000 thing is that the fire administration for the town, by a letter dated March 17th, 2000, has recommended the name of the road be changed to Sandy Cove.
because there's already another woodlawn.
Yeah, because Woodland is too close to Woodlawn.
No.
Right. But I think that the people on Sandy Cove didn't want that through traffic and have that be like a cut-through road is what my understanding
There are
is.
a number of access issues there, and I'll to keep it simple is that, that particular obstruction that's there, will remain in place, and there was a significant legal battle many years ago regarding that continued access all through there. And so I think any attempt to try to have any connection between these two roads would result in a mess.
And that's not, and that's,
To
that's
say
not,
the
that's
least.
not proposed here.
No, that's
No.
not proposed here.
Actually, Leon Blood from the Lower Village Survey told me not to even go near that.
So,
I'll
but I
listen
mean,
to him.
does the fire department need access through that fence? No, forget it, huh?
No,
Okay.
for fire purposes, these are essentially two dead-end roads.
Okay.
That, happen to,
Be the same road.
Happen to
Sort of
come up
connect.
to each other.
Okay.
But
All right.
And how long is it from South Main down to the?
If I remember correctly, it's about 1,700 feet.
now, today, and as we've looked at, numerous subdivisions today, and with the current standards, as you recall, one of the requirements or one of the options that we have in place for fire suppression is the requirement to put 13D systems, within the home. Now, this may not, because that restriction wasn't around or that option wasn't around, in the 1980s, whenever this subdivision was approved, it's not something that is, applicable to, the current permitted home, but is something that could be considered as part of a request for a second lot.
These right now you envision these being on wells.
Yep. We toyed with we tried to get estimates and pricing, and it was well over 500,000 to bring the water in. And it just became, unfeasible.
Prohibitive.
Yep. Because a well for each property be 25, plus a filtration system, maybe 30 grand each versus $500,000. So,
And septic, obviously.
yep. Yep.
Yeah, so I think, the purpose and, part of the discussion of the sketch plan is really to give Duncan some direction in terms of what to come back with, in terms of, a proposal and thoughts on the road.
And this is just to split Lot D into two lots?
That's correct.
Yep.
That's the whole thing, huh? Okay.
Because if my people hadn't had to upgrade the road, which is, we were basing it off 12 feet, which was what we kind of got a permit from the previous code officer. But if we go 16, that's still going to be close to 400,000. If we didn't have to do the road and the water, they would have done the water. But, it's either way, it's extremely expensive to access that property at this point. So,
Well, let's just be controversial. Why isn't 12 foot enough for the two families that are down at the end of the road, or 4 families that are down at the end of the road?
that's up to, that's
I mean,
plumb-
the board could, the board could have a discussion with that, it would put
It's
you.
already been approved?
It would put you in conflict with a previous, planning board approval, that 16 feet.
That's what I wanted to understand.
Yeah, it says it's required a 16-foot road with a clearing of 24.
Did it require it to be paved?
No, I don't believe there was a pavement requirement as part of that approval.
Why does it have to be that long? It seems like you could take off quite a few feet, just by coming to the corner of that second lot.
we could. We could stop there. We were just kind of trying to work with the neighborhood. Because actually, if you're looking at the second map that I gave, which actually shows the proposed lot division, the driveway was kind of going to be right on that pin where that split is.
With the hammerhead turnaround.
Nope, I'll show you real quick.
Cul-de-sac or a handicap.
Yeah, you could put it up here.
Yeah.
Because of the actual topography of the land, we were considering the driveway for this lot to be right here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big ledge here and
Yeah.
going uphill. So this is actually where we wanted to put the driveway, and the other house would potentially be roughly right
Well,
there.
if nobody's willing to help you with the financing of the road, I don't see why you have to bring it all the way down.
I'd love not to. We were kind of doing it to do this. This was the proposed, wanted
Okay.
to do a hammerhead for the emergency vehicles to be able to.
But you
turn
could do a
around.
hammerhead up here on the lot, basically.
Carve it out of the lot.
Yep, you definitely could.
But you may have the basis for negotiation with the owners of Lot B, as you go forward here. If you had some cost sharing, because right now, this doesn't give them any road, any more developed road. You obviously can't tear up the road that's there,
Right.
not yours.
The 2000 plan said they were supposed to construct
Yeah.
the cul-de-sac.
Right.
So
Most of those are, that's right.
the Cass people.
Yeah.
The Lot B guys, the 2000.
Oh,
Owners of Lot D?
Yeah, Lot B.
Owners of Lot B are supposed to construct that.
It says, the cul-de-sac depicted on the plan, which was a circle, I think.
Yep.
Shall be constructed before any permit is issued for a third lot in the subdivision.
Wow.
well, that gives you the basis,
As
basically to
shall
make
be
it a
the
road
road
that
with
comes
a
in
clearing of
right
24
in
and
here.
traveled width of 16.
And then if they want to
What if they
use the
choose to
road,
not
they
build
would have to,
They've chosen not to build
they
it.
would have to pay
Therefore, you
part
can't
of
have
the
a house on lot B.
construction.
That's it. You can't have a,
I have no real interest in legal
Unless they
battle
build.
with McKay, but we've tried to.
So can we just get everyone back to the
yeah,
microphones?
sorry.
Thanks.
No, let's talk about Frank.
I'm okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
see why you have to accommodate them if they're not willing to accommodate you and help with the cost of the road.
No, as long as you
No.
don't jeopardize the common asset that is that existing road.
Yeah, we plan to make it nice paved road
Yeah.
down in there, and we'd love to. This is actually one of the owners, Mr.
Okay.
Chris Arapoglu. He's the one who hired me to build here.
Well, maybe he would be interested in a legal then.
No,
You might want a little background on that discussion.
yeah. We're going over.
That's a good way to answer this.
We're just going over the length of the road. Do we have to go all the way down? Do we have to make the cul-de-sac or a hammerhead and different things like that?
I was suggesting you don't have to bring that road all the way down to make it to the second lot. You can bring it to the corner of that lot where it abuts the other lot you want to carve out.
Sure.
And if nobody's willing to assist you from the other lots and in the cost of preparing the road, then there's no reason for you to extend that road all the way down there.
That would be fantastic.
We were thinking about that too.
That would be great if we didn't have to, but in the interest of working with everyone and doing the right thing, we've already kind of started the process and kind of graded it, as you've probably seen if you've walked down there. But yeah, if we didn't have to go through the expense of paving that far and all that, that would be fantastic.
Could I ask a question? In the package, hold up this, it's like an aerial view.
Yep.
What is that
For some
intended to
reason,
show? It didn't come out, it didn't copy
Yeah.
well.
the red is supposed to be the actual, it's basically just from the GIS site, and it's the red outline of the lot, and then the yellow lines were just some topography. Yeah. It's basically just the GIS and a little topography.
So it's showing, if I do understand it, that it's quite a slope to it.
Some of it does, yeah.
Reminds me of the age-old question, sidewalk?
Oh, better now than in
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's better now.
Well, although it might be premature.
It was not amazing. I have it here in a full-size print also.
It is rather buggy though, I have to say that.
Yeah.
Not in
Yeah.
January.
This is, I don't know why I didn't print that well on smaller ones, but this is basically it. So the red outline is just the state property lines, there's your cul-de-sac, and then this is just topography. And that's the big house there. The other two lot B is here and here, was split.
Are these 10-foot lines?
Those would be 2-foot contours.
2 foot.
Yep.
So,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
so then Sandy Cove is here?
Yep, this is
Sandy
Sandy
Cove?
Cove Road.
But then the fence?
This is
Oh,
basically.
but that's actually the fence as well.
Yep. And Sandy Cove Road, if you're down there, there's a little hammerhead here, and then it's his driveway. The fence
Yep.
is actually, or the gate is actually part of his driveway. You'd have to go into his driveway to go through the gate, which should actually. Which one goes? No, that one, this one?
Right there.
Gotcha.
Just off the map.
Yep, and here's Woodland Drive itself coming in.
So, I know where this comes off of South Main, but I'm not sure what the maps show.
No, it kind of ends, this, you can see the road is coming through here and turns right over here.
Yeah.
And Pam's just rolling it, so it's trying to hold it down.
GIS shows another road that goes up here.
Yeah, which I don't know what it is. Might be an old paper street, imaginary road.
Well, in fact, I did have a question on that. So I was looking at the map done by IEC Jordan in, dated April 28th, 1980. So I tried to figure out, where Woodland Drive originates on South Main, and I don't think this map is, well, complete. So it might be worthwhile to try to update this with the actual location of the Woodland Drive intersection with South Main, just for completeness.
Yeah, because there's a Kings Highway on there, which isn't in that area either.
Yeah, and I think this is just incomplete, but, would it be so difficult to update this, just for the record? Might be useful for.
Larry, that's a good point. If you do walk down South Main and you find it,
Yeah,
will we, as a board, be interested? These will be the first homes that are put in off of that Woodland Drive.
yeah,
What about the sight lines
yeah.
as you come out of that onto what is sometimes a pretty busy South Main Street?
Yeah.
We will be interested in checking the safety of.
Because this is just over the,
I don't know if you've been there lately, within the last 2 weeks, 3
No,
weeks.
Yeah.
Mr. Munson owns the house
yeah,
on that corner.
right,
And Leon from Lower Village brought this up, but like 50% of his driveway and all those hedgerows are actually in the right-of-way. Yeah. So we've made a deal with Mr. Munson that we can remove those and replace them in a different spot, but not his driveway. So if you come out to the end of that road now, all that hedgerow is back 30 feet.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, and our deal is we have to make a nice transition for him when we're done with the road into his little driveway area with some kind of whether it's a stone wall or some more plantings or something, but they won't be the big arborvitaes like we're there.
So I'm just catching up here. You've already anticipated this concern,
Well, yeah, we couldn't get trailer trucks down there with the equipment.
Oh,
We couldn't
yeah,
make the
it's
turn.
very practical.
Yeah.
But
And there is
You're
actually.
going to run power down there.
Yeah, we're
You're in the
working with
process of doing
CMP.
that,
So with the road, we're building a swale on each side for water, and then we're also gonna have to bury power line in there.
So my point is, it'd be really useful, maybe if you could just update, maybe this Lower Village survey dated, I don't know, what's the date on here? Oh, gosh.
Is that without the split?
Yeah, the one that
first
shows
page.
the split, maybe just to have a supplemental sheet showing where it actually comes off of South Main, because I don't think it comes off of South Main where you're showing it to come off of South Main.
Well, so someone owns this Lisa Rogers Harrison. So if you can actually picture it,
There is some,
there is a large piece of land owned right here that goes down to Mr. Munson. So South Main Street would basically be over here.
Yeah,
This piece of land goes to Mr. Munson, which
okay,
owns on the corner of Woodland and South Main.
right.
So we asked him to survey this, but yeah, I'm sure he could, go the rest of the way.
It'd be really great if you would just show South Main and Woodland,
This
and
very small.
I believe Lower Village has that, has that information.
that
I've
would be
seen,
great.
I've seen an older plan that has more detail along that entrance.
I'm not
Basically,
either.
you're saying Munson's right there.
Yep.
You just double check on that.
Yep, I will.
Just for accuracy, thank you.
So it's been answered, but I want to ask the question again. Who owns that road?
He
Yep.
read the name to us, but you
It's
can't
the
find them.
Woodlawn
It's
something
Woodland
association? Woodland?
Drive North Owners Association, but they don't actually, we can't find any information on that.
And who did the paving on it about 20 years ago?
According to Mr. McCabe's attorney, he did, Mr. McCabe.
He did, because he had a big sign up for a while, he was going to sell a piece of it. And
Oh,
and I
really?
don't know that he did.
No, because he still owns those two.
Yes, he does.
Yep. Yeah, we found two old, beat-up real estate signs thrown over the back down there.
No further. Deer sleep down there. Do you remember any of that? Were you here then?
No, that was before my time.
Okay, has a little different question. On the 1980 plan,
Yep.
it shows a 25-foot right-of-way. I think on another one in that old findings, Tom, it called it a pedestrian right-of-way. Right up to where that fence would be.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of, looks like it connects down to a pedestrian pathway down to Lake of the Woods. What's going on there? What's that all about?
It kind of wraps around the Lake of the Woods there.
Well, yes, but why is it shown as connecting into the cul-de-sac, for example, or up to there?
Backing area to be placed here. I don't know if that was potentially going to be a parking spot for a
Backing area to be placed here.
grade and fill.
Yeah, and then next to that is the 25-foot right-of-way.
Yep.
It's November, it's
Now-
April 28th, 1980?
There, historically, there was originally the Seashore Company, that they were gonna
it's meant to
divide
be
all that up
findings.
on a grid. You can still see the old photo, bird's eye lithographs they did. They'll show up in town every now and then. In the 80s, there was an intent to create a huge subdivision back there, like about 35 houses. And there was gonna be walkways to the lake, there were grand plans, but they fell apart. But there were a lot of deeds that were written based on that subdivision. And so as land has gotten bought and sold around there, they've had to go back and refer to, it says, the deed refers to that subdivision, and they've had to go clear off right-of-ways with the abutting property owner.
Yeah, it's if you
And they're
in that.
haphazard.
George, this says here, I'm looking at the warranty deed that is included in this sketch plan application, and it says that the above described lot is hereby conveyed, together with the right in common of others having like right, to pass and repass by foot or bicycle along, over, and across the strip of land 25 feet in width, running from Lot B, as shown on the plan, along land formerly of Forester, now of someone else, to the Lake of the Woods, and thence along normally. So there's some
There's access
right
to
away
Lake of
for
the Woods?
pedestrian traffic,
If you read in
access
this,
down to Lake of the Woods.
if you read on this map, this 1981 under the Lake of the Woods, it says area to be deeded to the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust
Oh, yeah.
upon completion of initial sale of the lots. So they were intending, like you said, to do the big subdivision, and they were going to give that land.
And Lake of the
That would
Woods
be
is
common
indeed
land.
owned by
KCT.
KCT.
And there are a lot of deeds that refer to rights of way that were based on that subdivision plan that never happened.
Yep. You'll note on that plan, so even as you look at it, you see Lot C that's on that old plan. So that subsequently became Ocean Sound subdivision.
The one that says Forester is actually the Sandy Cove Road now.
Right.
But
Because there's
And
there's no road going to the cul-de-sac from Ocean Ave, so this is all that
Right, Sandy
Sandy
Cove.
Cove Road.
But
And-
right
and
now,
in the
lot D that you're asking, that you're considering subdividing,
Yep.
has the right to travel over that easement down through to Lake of the Woods. And you wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize that,
Correct.
like not building the road down.
No, it's a pedestrian.
It's pedestrian. Okay.
Or bicycles.
Thank you, Warden. Of course, you can't get through the gate anyway. That's why that little ladder is there, to climb over the gate. That's probably been removed by now.
You're gonna get me in trouble one of these days.
We didn't include this one just to get through, but this is a bigger version of what we had envisioned.
Yeah.
The first house would be here, and and the road would continue, and the second house would be here with the
Yeah.
driveway.
The houses would be up toward the front of the lots.
Yep, yeah, because we've got wetlands here.
Yeah, yeah.
We can- And over here, this is nice, beautiful.
And you're spending all your money just getting to the lot, so
Yep, this one,
it is beautiful.
the
yeah.
previous owner, I think was McCabe on this one, or I
Yep.
don't remember who owned this. He had already clear cut like 2 acres up here.
Yes, he did.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's a big knoll, but to get a driveway up there was gonna be pretty massive, so we found a good test pit here for the septic. And so, we've done all that preliminary work, but
Beautiful.
it would be a buildable area.
So on the surface, it seems to me pretty straightforward. You own a piece of land, like to divide it, put a house, sell a piece, have somebody else build a house. The questions around this property really have to do with the access and the road and
Yeah.
the property itself is a buildable lot.
There's a lot of interesting things about the property, but from a planning board point of view, I think as Werner was trying to steer us to begin with, is the fact that the road, as approved, wasn't to what are today's standards. What do we think about that? I think, the issue of fire suppression will be of concern to us, and I think the sight lines as to the entrance to the road that ultimately leads to this will be of concern.
Yep. There's, so if you're coming out of the road to South Main, this is very clear now.
I see to your
There's
left.
one very large tree right on the corner and on the property of this gentleman.
Yeah.
And I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I don't really think he wanted us to cut that tree down.
Is it
No.
a tag tree?
Not down that.
No. A tag tree, I'm sorry.
A tag tree would be in town right of way.
It's within 3 feet of the pavement, I think,
It's in the town
Probably
right
is.
of way.
so that could come
And it
down.
would take permission to bring that down.
But maybe with mirrored, augmented with a mirror on the other side of the
There's a
street
hill
or
and
some
a
such
curve.
thing.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
South Main Street. There is no line of sight.
It's coming up and around
It's a
the corner.
difficult road.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that tree really blocks any more than the curve of the road really does, but we could look at
Again,
it.
we're only talking about adding one additional home.
Currently, but there's a potential on that road.
Well,
No, I understand, yeah.
and as a practical matter, the question, then comes to me, well, what do I do when I get the next lot that shows up?
Yeah.
And may make a similar request in that regard. Now, that's not the question here that's in front of you. And to some degree, that's, I think it's important to ask those questions, but at the same time, this is a much easier process to figure out whenever you have, a singular owner of, the original subdivision to deal with this, right? And so I don't think it's prudent to necessarily go too far down the road in terms of the speculation of the potential of other division here. Although I think it's good to have the discussion. But the simple question here is more, to what standard would the board hold the applicant and the property owner for the request to be able to divide this lot? What standard do we hold that to?
So let me, not to get you into trouble, Werner, but let me turn that around. This is only before the board because this started off as a subdivision. What if this was just a property that was on this road that was being subdivided for the first time? It would go to the code enforcement office and they would look at this. What would they say?
Well, so if I was looking at this outside of the the subdivision process, ultimately, if I had in an ideal world, I'd have a 50-foot wide right-of-way and 20 feet of traveled width. And at that point in time, it's great. We review the space and bulk standards, the survey information that you see here. But at that point, the width of the road doesn't come into question. If I'm dealing with something other than that, or less than that for a potential division, it could come in front of the planning board, but under a site plan review, and you all have looked at those before. You have you have these existing private roads where once you get beyond 2 homes, right, whenever you trip into the third, now it comes before the planning board where you have, the authority to look at a previously approved road. In some cases, they may or may not meet the width requirements that you have today, but you have the authority to make those judgment calls as to whether or not, should this be widened, should it, can it safely remain at the width that's there? You all do that in conjunction with, a review by the chief as well.
We did one off the Wilds District.
Did one off the Wilds District. And so to some degree, we'd probably be here anyways, with, answering that question.
No, that's helpful though, because I think we do need to just remind ourselves, and I think that's what you're here for, is when we get over the excitement of understanding all of these intricacies and all, what is it that's really going to be important to get this through? And I think if it were me, I wouldn't wait till the last minute to talk to the fire chief. I'd be looking to say, hey, we're going to be doing this, and we wanted to get you involved early. And I think that's certainly as important, or maybe more important, than coming here with the sketch plan before the board.
Well, first step is usually here, one, just to kind of, to discuss the project and to, think a little bit about process and what the expectations may be.
There's nothing on like the property itself that says, no, you can't build a house. No
Correct.
setback requirements,
Nope, it's a buildable lot.
Buildable lot.
Yep.
And it's got a prior subdivision. So there's some stuff already established. May not be stuff we understand or to standards that we would hold them now, but those were the standards they had when this land was divided to the current owner.
But you have a duty to look at current standards of the ordinances. Not just for fire reasons, but for other safety reasons.
Public
Can
safety.
2 cars pass?
Absolutely.
Okay? Do you need culverts in there?
Can
And
10
we
cars
need-
pass?
Right, so you need to look at all the standards you have for a subdivision today, because they were put in place basically for safety reasons or for other reasons,
Right.
for maintenance
Yeah.
and along the
On
way.
a private road.
And so you would take those into account. You wouldn't necessarily apply them. You could waive them. You don't even have to waive them if you don't really have, if you already have an established subdivision without those.
Correct.
But I think as the planning board looks at it, you would have to look at it in terms of a subdivision. If there are gonna be other owners in there eventually, what do you need for this road? And not holding the applicant to a very high standard and saying, well, there might be 20 homes here, so you have to widen the road to, this.
To meet those 20 people.
Right, but taking it reasonably as you go along and taking a look at each one of those things issues that we have in the land use ordinance today. And that's basically all I would see.
Arguably, you've had 4 property owners there since 1980.
That's right.
So,
Can I just leverage off of what Nina just said? Tom, you'll smile when you think about what would happen if you don't widen this road and you want to get garbage, trash collection.
Yes.
They're not going to come up that road. You're going to sell this home, this
Gonna wheel it all the way up.
multi-million-dollar home, and
No,
they're going to wheel their little trolley down to the end of
right.
South Main. I don't.
The town won't come down unless you have at least 4 houses on dead-end road.
Well, but even when they do, I know
It
you're
took us a
you're
long
old,
time to get
and
a-
when they
get a-
come down now, they're still having trouble making the turnaround because the road was not built
For the
to,
Oh, yeah.
to that purpose. It's narrow.
Yeah.
Now, you make do and all of that, but it's just, Nina's point is spot on. It's like, if only we had itemized all of the rationale for why each line item in the design guide was what it was. But I know one practical concern here is large delivery vehicles, and just what you're running up to now with constructing.
Moving vans.
Yeah, and that's why we were gonna make it at least 12 feet wide, and if it had to be 16, we can do that too, and you'll have the hammerhead to turn.
That's right.
If we
That's-
have to do the
Well-
cul-de-sac.
Okay.
I think you've got an idea of what you need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an idea of what you're planning to do and what might happen in the future. I think we probably need a sidewalk here,
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because
Be
I'd
good.
like to see it where it joins South Main.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a tagged tree there, you have an issue
Mm-hmm.
site,
Mhm.
because Shade Tree Committee doesn't like to see tagged trees come down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on the Shade Tree Committee.
Yeah,
so
there
I'm
is, the town did
warning you
put,
right now.
the town did put up a, you know, a blue Woodland Drive private road sign at the end of the road. So
Yeah.
that is there
Oh,
now.
nice.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
won't keep the tourists out, by the way.
Oh, no, I know.
They come down my driveway.
Oh,
all
but,
the time.
but we can certainly identify it now.
Oh,
Exactly
absolutely.
where it was. Yeah, I was.
Yep.
Was this where it was? I don't want to walk up so-and-so's driveway.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
definitely got the sign out there now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I know where it is.
So
Yeah.
given where it sounds like, the board may want to consider doing a site walk, is this something that we want to have as a group? So as a meeting per se? Or is this something that, board members want to visit the site individually?
I don't need it. I think that when more is known about where the, where different things will be located, maybe when it comes time for the first application, the first phase, then yes, but.
Well, we already have the foundation permit, and they're actually gonna pour the footers
Oh,
for the
okay.
first house on Friday. So you'll be
You do know
able to.
where the driveways are gonna go?
Yep,
and
yeah, it's
all
already
that?
roughed in.
Oh.
You'll see the excavators there, and,
It'll be fun.
yep.
So does the board want to have a site walk as a group?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, all right. So we'll float a couple of dates and times so that we've got adequate time just to make, to make notice of that, so.
Who's gonna bring the donut?
The applicant.
Applicant.
Whoa, well, that's private.
Applicant pays.
Funny you should ask, yeah.
Yeah,
No donuts.
okay,
Alright.
sounds good, yep. So I think that's our direction that we
So
have for now is to
Would a
schedule
site walk be during, like, regular office hours, or is this gonna be an after-hours kind of thing?
It's usually during the day.
During the
Okay.
day as usual.
Yep,
Don't
Whatever's
see much
convenient.
at night.
okay.
Yep, yep. So yeah, so we'll float around a couple of, some ideas for
And the
times and
applicants
dates.
will get to weigh in on that
Yes,
too, right?
yep, yeah,
Yep.
well, based on your availability.
Yep.
Yep,
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could lose a planning board member if you brought us out at.
That's right.
We've had a couple of site walks where excuse me. Jim Logan one, where we were going up.
Oh,
the
yeah.
hill.
I should have worn higher boots.
Yeah.
So the next step for me is the site walk and then fire chief and that kind of?
Fire chief, police chief,
Okay.
probably in the corners too.
yeah. Yeah, and then, as far as administratively, the next step would be an application. Since this is the sketch plan, this is this is what I tell folks, this is the hey, what do you think meeting. And then, the next step would be, filling out, the application, which you have a lot of the information already. So I think what we've heard is there's a couple of additional informational pieces that the board wants to get. And then, ultimately, some type of, road cross-section layout is ultimately what also would need to be part of that app.
Yeah.
A road cross-section?
Right, yep. Yep. And, Lower Village Survey has done those, has done those for previous applicants before, so since you're already working with them.
Doesn't the town GIS map show some of the easements? Are there maps that show some of the public easements? Be interesting to see what they have.
Yes, so we do have some easements located, but not all. So, is there one in particular that you're interested
The
in?
one around Lake of the Woods that goes up through that little lot.
Yeah, that's not,
As a practical matter, that doesn't exist.
yeah, that's not shown on any of the maps that we have, but,
So,
Are you burying utilities?
Yeah, we were gonna bury the power.
Poles.
No, bury it with transformers.
Nice.
So are we saying that the requirements of the previous finding of facts apply? That they've got to satisfy all those?
Well,
Not for
you
this
know,
lot.
the previous, I would say that the previous standard that was, that was levied by the planning board is a relatively straightforward one to carry forward here. And would certainly provide for consistency with the other adjacent properties, because that's the that was the standard that was, that was applied.
Okay.
If you were looking for a recommendation, that's my rationale, would be to say, you have a previous approval that that the board applied to the division of 8331, and in terms of consistency, it would make sense to carry forward that same standard that was applied to that division for this particular division, in
Okay.
terms of, for consistency's sake.
Okay, good,
But-
yeah. All right.
But it's,
You have a 16-foot road then?
it's up to the board.
We
to-
were approved for 12 feet.
Okay, because 16 is what was the last time the
Yep.
planning board voiced.
That's
anything.
correct, but that was a condition that was levied on the 8331 division,
Yes.
and is not it's a little difficult to have your neighbor, go through a process and get a condition that then gets unilaterally placed on all the properties
All
down
right.
through there.
So, all right, hypothetical then, we build a 12-foot road, and Mr. McCabe decides to build on the cat's property.
Yep,
He has to widen the road?
that's the past condition, to 16 feet.
Well,
Or he
Kev-
has to come to the planning board and ask for
A waiver.
that condition to be
So, is there any time limit? I mean, should Mr. McCabe have already
Right.
done the 16
I
footer?
mean, arguably that approval has expired, with no construction having been done. But,
Well,
Okay.
some construct- I mean, the road, some of
well,
the road was there.
that's right. There's arguably, you do have somewhat of a basin there.
Right.
And that would be subject to kind of a field verification of what's there.
The,
Come across numerous roads that, on the surface looked like they weren't built, but, you do a little bit of investigation and digging and find that the base is actually there.
the easement for the road is there,
Like some roads.
for a
That's right.
16-foot width.
Oh, yeah. Now, on paper, there's plenty of width. There's plenty of width for that within right of way.
Is it needed at this point?
Yeah. So I think we're done. We'll
Okay.
arrange
Is there
for-
anything else you wanted to ask?
Nope, just, what's my next, so I'll do the application and then we'll do a site walk and then
Yep.
talk to the fire marshal and,
Public hearing goes on the next two plans, the preliminary and final plan.
but do I have to have I know usually you have to have stuff turned in before the next meeting, so does that push me out another?
Yeah, we can talk about the calendar piece of it, but I think really before you start putting together the application for preliminary, it's good to have a better sense of what
Yep.
you're actually submitting.
Okay.
But
Okay.
all right.
mean-
So we'll work on getting a date set
All
for the
I
site
mean,
walk.
I'll definitely be down Monday and Tuesday of next week I don't know if you wanna set it, if
No
we need
notice requirements.
Yeah, we have public notice requirements.
Oh, okay.
Even though it's not an application yet?
A site walk is a planning board meeting. If there's three or more of us there.
So we have to do a public notice that you're doing a site walk, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Which is really just, a posting of an agenda. Yep. We don't do a butter notifications for a site walk. It's just you're holding a meeting. Sometimes, the public is more aware of it because we've already had a preliminary app. It really just depends on the timing of how you do your site walks. We've done site walks after, a preliminary application has been filed. And, but there's no notification, a butter notification process for site walks. but there is a public, there's a public notice requirement just for your, for the fact that you're meeting. Yep.
Okay. So, we'll take another motion here.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thanks.